What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your hostess, doing the mostest. And listen, I just had a lot of stuff on my mind, and it was too much to tweet about, too much to make a TikTok about. And listen, this is for NBC. Where is the renewal announcement for Brilliant Minds? Like, you're going to make me lose my mind up in here, up in here. Okay. So if you don't know, I did do a podcast episode, a review and recap of Brilliant Minds season 1, episode 1. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll just go ahead and link that in there. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, then I will have the link for that specific episode in the show notes. So make sure y'all be looking in the description box and in the show notes so you can just click straight on there and go there immediately. Okay, that is for y'all. So Brilliant Minds is about a doctor, Dr. Oliver Wolf. The names were changed, but it is based on a real life neurologist who suffered from his own neurological medical condition, facial blindness, but he used that condition and went to school to be able to help people with brain diseases. Specifically, he was specializing in a lot of unique brain diseases and neurological disorders that most people weren't, I don't want to say that they weren't equipped for, but he just had such a passion and a fascination for it that he used unusual methods and his ability to have so much empathy and his own experience with his own facial blindness to really connect to patients and get to a point where he was doing, a few unorthodox, not all illegal person. Okay, there was an episode where he took some drugs to go find somebody, but some unorthodox methods in order to properly diagnose patients. Now, did this mean that every patient lived? No. And that was one of the beauties of the show, right? So you have shows like back in the day, let's say House, where, it's similar premise. There's this doctor. He's very unusual in the way that he solves cases. He particularly likes to solve unusual cases. But then you had a lot of times where, the patients were living or were catching it at the end and we're getting it right before the life or death situation. But in which I loved House, don't get me wrong. But in Brilliant Minds, we were dealing with a team of people. You have him as the chief neurologist working with the chief neurosurgeon, Josh Nichols, and the chief neuropsychiatrist, which is his best friend. Oh my God, I forgot her name. Carol, Jesus Christ. So you have a team of people, and he also has interns as well. So you're seeing a dynamic kind of surrounding this whole thing of the show called Brilliant Minds. And the show title pays homage to not only the doctors and the team that work together to try to save these patients' lives, but also reflecting on the patients and saying yes, you may have a neurological disorder or disease that is causing a disruption in your life, but that doesn't make your brain any less worthy or damaged in comparison to other people. So the title name alone just really connects the doctors to the patients, and you as an audience member just have more empathy going into these cases than you would maybe watching another doctor show. And right now there's so many of them out. We have Brilliant Minds, you got Doc on Box, you got St. Dennis Medical, you got The Pit, you have Chicago MD. So there's so many medical shows out there. Grey's Anatomy is still out, and they're all different, right? So we're back in an era where, there's a bunch of bottles of water, but everybody has different water brands, and each water brand has their own unique thing to end up getting that audience to cling on to them. So what Brilliant Minds bring is the fact that your doctor also has a similar neurological disadvantage than other people, and they're using that to practice medicine in that way. So I already explained that. I won't re-explain that. But another thing that Brilliant Minds ended up doing throughout the entire season is developing these relationships between him and the interns, between him and another doctor. And we gonna get there. We gonna get there because those are my babies. Those are my babies. But we're fleshing out the reasons that even the interns came. So like one of the interns, he had multiple concussions when he was playing football, and they were basically like, if you get one more, like you're not going to be having like a normal life. And so he had to pivot and transition to doing something else. And so he was driven by the fascination of CTE and even wanting to cure it and wanting to help other athletes, specifically football players, on how to prevent it or at least manage some of the concussions and brain damage that you sustain by giving your body over to something that you love. And underneath all of that, his dad was really counting on him to go pro and everything like that. And so while he's a doctor, he's in medical school, he's an intern, to be a neurologist and maybe even potentially go into neurosurgery as another subspecialty, he's dealing with the fact that one of his biggest heroes in his life doesn't even approve. And then we have Ericka. She's a perfectionist, type A personality. Everything needs to go like a very specific way. Like if it's not going one way, it's going the other. And she just thwarted her entire personal life to devote to being a doctor. But one of the biggest things about Ericka is she cares about what everybody thinks of her, what they think of her, how they perceive her. And sometimes it gets in the way of her being able to empathize with other patients. So even though it may not be like, oh, she is suffering from like a concussion or facial blindness or anything like that, she has more of the psychosis behind what brings her here and how she's able to also assist and grow as a character and grow with these patients as well, which is why I love that Dr. Collins, the neuropsychiatrist, works very closely with Dr. Collins, so Josh, and with Oliver, who is her best friend of 20 years. And so you have this dynamic where you're getting full like patient care. Like this is patient-centered medical home care within a subspecialty of neurology, right? You have Mark, who he has what you call, oh my God, what is the actual name? Mirror touch. There it is. So if you're experiencing something, that's whether he's touching you or even in the vicinity of you, whatever it is that you feel, joy, pain, fear, anxiety, whatever, he feels it. So think of it as being an empath, but like instead of it being an emotional reaction to whatever is going on in front of you, he can feel it. One of the things that ended up coming out for him very early on was he was unable to cut into a patient to give them stitches because he was shaking and all this other stuff and he just couldn't do it. And so Oliver went to him and was like, what's up? Like, like you can't be a doctor without, doing some stitches or whatever. And so that's when he tells him what's going on with the mirror touch. So he goes and he takes him, and Oliver didn't even want interns, but people automatically assumed that he was an asshole and he was a dick because he didn't recognize you, or you would come up to his face and you would talk to him and he's just kind of like, okay, he's short. Because if he's only talking to you in passing, it's not even long enough for him to be able to look on anywhere else on your body to identify you and tell his brain that you and this voice and these ears or these eyes or these hands are associated with this name and this scent. So he already had like a bad rap of being an asshole, but turns out he just guarded his own feelings and his empathy and poured it a lot into patients because his patients needed him and they weren't going to judge him without trying to figure out what was actually wrong with him. So he did the same thing for Mark. So he got with him, he's working on cadavers, and then he ended up helping Mark find focus things in the room or just opening up to the other interns so that when he's doing procedures, they can think about something that's calming or more soothing. And he ended up working on even calming and soothing techniques with his patients so that he can actually treat them and not be riddled with whatever emotions is going on around him in the room. So even in the first couple of episodes, Carol was really urging Oliver to open up to his interns about facial blindness so that he can bridge the gap and make a connection. And from that, the rest of the interns started opening up about their things too, which leads us to the other intern, Dr. Dang, I believe is her name. What is her first name? Dana. So Dana actually is diagnosed with anxiety. She suffers from a little bit of PTSD and all those things. So you get this team specifically working with Dr. Oliver and including Dr. Oliver himself, who have all of the ingredients to understand the patients that come in and actually build the connections between the doctor and the patient so that when they're rendering care, it's not cold. Patients don't walk away feeling like their doctor didn't listen to them, or they're not following procedures, or they're not doing all that they can to save them. And so at the heart of this show, that is what you have. Now, getting into the mess of things. Carol, husband, was cheating on her, y'all, and her husband's mistress ended up being treated by Carol in the hospital. And she would go in there and sit in these sessions and talk about the ways that they made love and the way that they love each other and all these other things. But she ended up slipping up with Carol, and Carol had Dana look into it, and that's how she ended up figuring out like this woman has a connection to her husband, and that's how she kind of like put two and two together. But instead of dismissing her as a patient and reporting it to the chief of the hospital, she ended up continuing to treat her to try to get information and try to understand why her husband cheated on her in the first place. So at the end of season 1, she got suspended by the chief of medical staff, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter your reasons. This was unethical and you had a duty to report. And this woman ended up attempting to kill herself, even after you knew exactly who she was. Y'all, some of the craziest shit I've ever seen on TV. Like, soon as she found out and she kept going, I said, Carol, you need to remember your roots. You need to remember your oath. Like, this is not worth it. On top, the husband had their daughter around this lady, and the woman was threatening to report Carol to the ethics board anyway. So it's like, did this girl report Carol, or did this come out some other way? We have no idea. And the fact that they haven't made a season 2 announcement is pissing me off. Another thing that ended up happening, Ericka is secretly, I don't want to say on drugs. I think that's a little harsh to use, but she's suffering from PTSD from the building collapsing, and somebody ended up falling down in an elevator and dying in front of her. So she's dealing with the thoughts of that, the PTSD of that, trying to just get on an elevator again. And instead of her going to see a psychiatrist and maybe getting on some anti-anxiety meds and stuff, she's sneaking and taking Dana's medication. After already kind of judging Dana, not Dana per se, but she ended up saying like, well, I don't need a crutch for me to get through the day. I'm not weak. And Dana is already diagnosed with these things. So she already views like being able to take medications to seek assistance as something that would make her weak. But now she's secretly taking these drugs. Is that going to lead to a drug habit? Because you're taking drugs that's not prescribed to you. So the dosage of the medication is going to affect your body much differently than it's going to affect the person that it's prescribed for. And now you don't even know if you have an allergy to it or what side effects will actually affect you, which would then impair you, which would cause you to harm and or kill a patient. So we're dealing with that, right? Mark and, oh my God, what was that doctor? I gotta look up my old notes for Brilliant Minds, because I think I called the football player I can't even remember the name, y'all, because I'm on a roll right now. Jacob. So Jacob is the football player. I don't think I said his name earlier. I would have remembered that. So you have Jacob as an intern, Dana as an intern, Ericka as an intern, and Mark as an intern, Oliver, the chief of neurology, Josh as the chief of neurosurgery, Carol as the chief neuropsychiatrist. And then who is the chief of medical staff, y'all? Oliver's mom, yo. So it's already been just like a whirlwind because he got let go from other hospitals. This is the only place, Bronx Medical, by the way, that he's able to get a job. And he's been struggling while being close to his mom. He's been struggling with all of the old memories and stuff that's coming up because his dad suffered from bipolar disorder and a myriad of other things. And his dad was a renowned neurologist, I believe. I don't think he was in neurosurgery. He was a renowned neurologist, but his own mental condition and mental disorder ended up taking over his life, and he ended up dying 30 years ago, succumbing to just his own psychosis. But get this, y'all. He is not dead. He is not dead. That man came back in one of the pivotal episodes. And of course, Oliver didn't recognize him. He has facial blindness. People just talking to him. It was during the episode where Ericka's building collapsed. He was there to help and all these other things. And then he ended up showing up to Oliver's mom's house. What's her name? Her name, Muriel, Dr. Landon. He ended up showing there. So obviously she recognized him. But the dad suffers from facial blindness too. So the reason Oliver even knows how to pick up certain things is because when he was younger, that's what his dad would teach him. And Oliver's trauma with his father goes so deep to the fact that every time he had a memory about some of the happier times with his dad, it ended up turning out to be the happier times with his mom. But he blamed his mom for his dad's death and for not even being able to help him. It's a family full of doctors. Why can't you help my dad? And this is what drove him to go into medicine in the first place. So he had a lot of resentment towards his mom, and it affected the relationship. Just for throughout all of the episodes, it turns out that every good memory that he superimposed as his father's face, it was his mom. And she decided to take the brunt of all of his pain, all of his anger, and all of his trauma, if that meant him keeping a good image of his father in his mind. Turns out he was never dead. But get this, it was his idea to fake his death. He had left Oliver out in the woods and was going out talking about somebody's out to get me, all these other things. Left Oliver at the age of 14 out in the woods with a gun, lost by himself. He ended up coming home, and Muriel was just having a girls' night in or whatever. And she's like, "Where is our child?" And he's like, "No, we gotta go. We gotta go. Like, they got him. We gotta go. Oliver, like, it's too late for him." She's like, "What are you talking about? Like, where is my son?" So they ended up finding the son. And when he finally calmed down from his manic episode, she was like, "Okay, we need to get you checked in. You need to go see somebody. Like, I can't manage this on my own anymore. Like, we really need to face the fact that your mental health is deteriorating." And that's when Oliver's dad made the decision of, "I'm just going to leave, and you can just tell him I died because I don't want to hurt him." And she's like, "That doesn't make any sense." And he was like, "It's the best thing for her." So Muriel didn't even want her husband to leave. All of this comes out in the last 2 episodes. But unfortunately for Oliver, it blows up his whole life with Josh. So Josh is the chief of neurosurgery, and he does not hit it off well with Oliver at all. And part of it is, Oliver's moving around. He's in the hospital and he's just walking by him or whatever. He doesn't remember him when they have conversations and all these other things. And Josh is kind of like, "Who do you think you are? Like, why would you not remember me?" And kind of just like, "Okay, I don't think I needed your attention, but the fact that you're not giving me your attention is a problem to me." And so you kind of question Josh's like intentions and why he's so upset that Dr. Oliver doesn't like sit and have lingering conversations and stuff with him or whatever. And so he ends up going into his office because he's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna bring this up because you're being a dick and all this other stuff. And that's when Oliver is like, well, I suffer from facial blindness. It's literally not that deep. But since this bothers you, stand there right quick and let me just do an assessment and see what I can grasp onto so that when I'm looking at you or when you're in my periphery, then I will recognize who you are, especially since we're going to be working literally side by side. So he's doing his assessment and Josh is kind of looking uncomfortable underneath his gaze. Now listen, Zachary Quinto and the actor who plays Josh Nichols, what's his name? Teddy Sears, they've actually been in projects before. And they were a couple during, I think it was season 1 of American Horror Story. So this is their first time working together. So their on-screen chemistry is already like, boom. So if Zachary Quinto was looking at you like that, then yes, you're gonna blush, my guy. And so Oliver ends up settling on like his hands being a defining feature. Josh is 6'4" and Oliver is 6'1". So of course he's gonna have large hands. He's gonna have like smooth hands. He cares about his hands. His hands are insured. He is a neurosurgeon, right? And so this is kind of like the first thing that you kind of see where maybe Josh has an attraction, but we keep things professional. But then they ended up having a case where Josh, one of Oliver's friends, ended up having an episode at where was he at? Like a biker bar. And so they really needed to hurry up and get him to the hospital. And so Josh was driving his car, but he's like, we really need to relieve the intracranial pressure, reach into this bag and get this scalpel and these other things. And so Oliver's like, who in the fuck keeps these tools just randomly specifically in their car? So Josh is like, listen, I'm gonna try not to hit any bumps. But I need to talk you through doing this thing. And during that time, he ends up getting a text in his car. And it was like, the message was like, hot gym guy or something like that was his name in the phone. And it was like, last night was so fun. Can't wait to do it again or whatever. And Josh is like, or whatever. And Oliver just moves on, but then it ends up coming up later because Josh is kind of like stressed about like not wanting Oliver to think that he's just be out here hoeing around. But like, do you? Like, you're fine. And you're a surgeon. Like, that's sexy to somebody who may be, a hot gym guy or whatever. And so it's that episode where Josh gets confirmation that Oliver also is gay. And by looks alone, you really wouldn't know. And that's also what I love about the relationship is like sexuality is not rooted in aesthetics or what somebody looks like, and there aren't any assumptions made about anybody. So it really just takes a backseat and you get to just focus on their budding friendship and their budding relationship. But then you have the episode titled Roman. I have read many fanfics that were inspired by Roman. Roman episode, I believe it's episode 7. Okay. And that is the episode where there is somebody who's basically trapped in his own body, but Oliver figures out how to get his brain to send waves to this computer system that is being workshopped or whatever and pending patents and approval for the FDA to be used for other people with what's called locked-in syndrome. And so they end up finding that the story of Roman, him and his boyfriend were going to the United States and fleeing some turmoil and everything from his country when he ended up getting hit by a car on his bicycle, but he was so scared to go to the hospital because he didn't have insurance and he was scared he would get deported that he was just like, okay, I'll just take some medication and I'll just go home and lay down. Well, he ended up having like a stroke in his sleep and he never woke back up or recovered. And so multiple episodes before we even get to this episode, he was just this John Doe that got dumped on the Bronx. So we first meet him 2 episodes prior to his full backstory and finding the person that he came to this country and wanted to be with. Well, they gave him back his voice and his ability to make his own medical decisions, and he chose to not have a life like that, and he chose to let his partner go to live a full life and find love again. And in one of these conversations where all of the team took Roman back to, they have like this house. It's not Oliver's house, but there's a house where they like to go to think and to go over and ruminate over different cases and have different ideas and stuff like that. And so they took him to that house, took him, off ventilation and everything like that. And so that he could pass away peacefully, surrounded by the interns, Oliver, Josh, everybody, and by his love, while looking up at the stars and, going on his own terms, wrapped and surrounded by the love of his life and the people who wanted the best for him. But one of the conversations before his actual passing was talking to Oliver, and he was like, I see the way Josh looks at you, and I see the way you try to fight returning those same looks and returning those same feelings. I was able to have a love that even transcended my own medical condition. And you don't want to let something like this go, even if it doesn't last forever. Allow yourself something in your life to hold on to that is specifically yours and that is specifically beautiful. And he ends up passing, and it affects everybody. And this is one of those cases where even Josh was not really understanding what Oliver was doing. And they had a lot of beef between Roman's decision. Like, they weren't on the same page at all. But in this episode, Josh got to see Oliver completely broken down, Oliver, confiding in him just a little bit more, and why he's so passionate about wanting to save every single life, because he still feels some type of responsibility to his father's death. And during that episode, he doesn't know that his father is alive, but the amount of responsibility and the weight that he's been carrying around for the last 30 years, it kind of comes out. So they just kind of have this friendship, and you see their relationship bloom. Well, at the end of this, Oliver's going over all the words with Roman as he sees Josh across the street, and he recognizes him because at this point he's been picking apart little features so that he knows who at least his co-workers are in a sea of a bunch of bodies on the street. And he ends up going across the street, y'all, and he plants a wet, sopping kiss on Josh's lips. But what does he do? He walks away, get on his motorcycle, and he leaves. So in that next episode, they are like kind of like sharing some looks, but mostly Oliver is walking around like nothing ever happened. And Josh is like squirming in his pants, in his scrubs, like what the fuck is going on? So finally, Oliver is in his office, and he gets up the courage because he's like, are you actually gay? Did I misread things? Are you like a straight dude, but you're embarrassed? Did you come out? Like what is going on? Like all of these things are going on in his head. And he goes into Oliver's office, and he was like, look, we need to talk about yesterday. And Oliver's like, yeah, we actually do. So he goes over to the door. He's like looking out, making sure nobody's around. And then he closes the blinds. And as Josh is getting ready to like lay into him, Oliver just grabs him, and they're having a whole makeout session in his office. And so it's like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Now, if y'all want to know some fics, there is one fic that is amazing. This fic describes the aftermath of them realizing that they're attracted to each other and they want to kind of pursue something with each other. And so this fic is particularly about having boundaries and setting ground rules of the amount of touching, kissing, and their professional relationship while at work. It's amazing. It's explicit. But in this, right, back to the story, they are getting to know one another. They're spending more time with one another. You get to see them in sharing space with each other. They still have their spats as doctors, as they should. They're colleagues. They don't need to necessarily acquiesce to one another. But Oliver finally has something that is his, that is untouched by his mother, especially when in the past, when his mama caught him kissing some boy, she ended up sending that boy away immediately the next day and just never talked about it. And then they ended up having a situation where they were kissing in the elevator. Y'all, I love it. Just mid 40-year-old men acting like little horny teenagers. And when the elevator door opened, it was his mama. And she didn't say nothing about it. But then she went and tried to go to Josh and was like, you better not hurt my son and this better be whatever. And she put so much fear in him that Josh tried to break it off. But then Oliver was like, did my mama say something to you? And when he went and put her in check. So the thing that you see also throughout Brilliant Minds is all the times that Oliver confronts his mother about his own memories and how she made him feel. Not as a doctor, she always poured into him and his studies, but he always felt like she was never a mother to him when he needed her to be his mom the most. So they kind of reached like an impasse, and Oliver was like, listen, I'm not going to let nobody get in between us. Like, I want to do this with you. And so they're building and they're budding between episode 7 and episode 13. And, Josh admitting, I'm falling for you. Like, I'm falling for you. I have this award ceremony coming up. I want you to be my date. I got you this suit. Josh even bought this man a phone. Y'all, he wasn't even using a cell phone, but he's like, I want to talk to you all the time. And Oliver wanted to talk to him all the time. But the reason Josh got him a cell phone was because he was away at some conference. And because Oliver was only using landline, he kept missing his phone call. So in that whole episode, he's like, did Josh call? Did Josh call? Did Josh call? And finally, he at the end of his shift, he comes back to a gift and it's a cell phone, and Josh ends up calling in. He's like, now you can reach me whenever you want. Like, oh my God, they are just the cutest. These are my babies. Like, you got Lestat and Louis, and then you have Josh and Oliver. Like, those are my sweethearts. You also have Aurox and Mizrak. Okay, you have Alucard and Trevor. You got Alucard and Aurox. Like, these are my loves. Okay, I hold my boy loves so deep into my heart. So to also see a love story, a beautiful one at that, and one that does have traumas tied to both characters. Because Josh used to be in the military, his family, he was in the military during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. When are you getting a wife? You're a fine young man. You're 6'4", you're smart, you're built, you're all these other things. And so you got the weight of the homophobia coming from even his family. And everything like that, which not his sister. We do meet his sister and his nephew in one of these episodes because Oliver thought he had like a secret wife and a kid. But they're both working through and trying to communicate their traumas until Oliver goes to his house. He's trying on the suit. He's so excited to go meet Josh and show off his suit on his body. See his man, his man, his man. And he's like, ain't you the dude that helped us with that? It's like, why are you in my house? Like, what is going on? And his mom and Carol ends up coming in because the mama was going to Carol like, I need you to break the news to Oliver. And Carol was like, ma'am, hell no, you ain't about to use me. You're going to tell Oliver the truth, and I'll just be there for when my best friend needs me. But because his dad broke into his house before they were ever able to get there, Oliver ends up realizing that he is staring at his own father. So Muriel and Carol come in there too late. And so at this point, Oliver's like, y'all knew? And Carol's like, listen, she just told me 10 minutes ago, and I told her to bring her ass over here and tell you about it. And so now Oliver's whole world is disrupted. Do you think he made it to Josh's award ceremony? No, he did not. He didn't answer his phone calls. He didn't answer his text messages. He was MIA. And when Josh went to the hospital to see if he was just caught up, maybe he'll wait for him there, he ended up finding the suit draped over the chair in his office. No other communications whatsoever. And that is how season 1 ended. Tell me that don't make you want to get a season 2 renewal. All of these other shows on NBC getting their announcements well before the seasons ever ended. Okay. And Brilliant Minds season 1 left it open for so many different things. Carol is suspended. Ericka taking drugs. Your daddy is alive. Josh is left in the dark. He has no idea what this is. So of course you're only left to think, like, did my confession of saying, like, I was falling for you, did that scare you off? Because that was a little bit of a contention in their relationship, is as they were feeling that love, both of them kind of being like, oh shit, like this is getting really real. So he's left in the dark completely, right? Is Carol getting investigated? Especially because she said she was going to file a complaint against the hospital for wrongful suspension in the first place. So we have so many things going on. And all of it is done beautifully, and all of it is done cohesively. So what in the bleep is going on at NBC, Comcast, Universal headquarters that we're not getting an announcement? And I don't want it to be about no contracts. I don't want to be about nothing. Pay these people what they deserve. The cast chemistry is phenomenal. The storylines are phenomenal. And the fact that the sub stories are actually just as touching and just as heartfelt as the stories of the cases themselves says a lot. Because a lot of times the cases take a back seat to the alternate storyline or vice versa. And so the Bronx General is not just some setting, right? It's actual stuff going on, and dramatized, but based on real life cases that happen based on someone's actual real life who wrote a book about his own experience as a doctor and being a doctor in this world with facial blindness. But then the way that the relationships, and I use relationships as all of them to include friendships, platonic, emotional, parental, or whatever, the way that the relationships also add to these stories and the way that the cases impact those relationships as well. Like, there is not a show like it, and there won't be a show like it. And I truly believe that NBC will have a void in the sea of medical dramas that are out right now. I truly believe that Brilliant Minds is bringing something that the others aren't bringing, something that is pure. The only other doctor show that I could think of right now that's really bringing that is Doc on Fox, and then The Pitt. But The Pitt is on HBO Max, and we already know how Max be treating their shows. But as far as like network television, Doc on Fox is another one where it's like you are getting drawn into the case as much as the drama in a way that doesn't make it feel super fake. Like, they are grounding these stories in reality and then wrapping them in fiction so that you have such an emotional and visceral connection right away with everything that's going on. So there's that, y'all. Is Brilliant Minds canceled? That is the question. When are we getting a season 2 renewal? I promise you, I'm going to have a mild crash out if I see something that says Brilliant Minds is canceled. Like, when I am trying to just numb my mind from all of these like TV shows and screeners and watching these movies and all of these other deadlines and stuff that I set for myself, because this is also a job for me now. I mean, I'm passionate about it. I love it. It don't feel like a job. But the amount of hours that I put into sitting here and talking to you all and making these posts and making these TikToks and all these other things, it's a job now. It's like, it's a career. It's a career of my own making. I like to sit with characters and stories and sit with other writers and see what they've come up with in their minds. And these are two of the characters, Josh and Oliver. The story about the characters of Brilliant Minds are the stories that I go to with the fanfic writers who had fixed after, the Roman episode, or who's writing what they think is going to happen after the finale of season 1, and to really connect with other fans of the show, other writers who could potentially be writers of the show, or other podcasters, or other like press members of the press and stuff like that, and know that so many other people are hungry for more content from this show. So it's like, what are we doing? There is a demand for this, and the type of mess that it's in, it's just beautiful. Like, y'all remember when Grey's Anatomy came out, and it was really just like, yeah, there's patients, but we're like hooking up in the closet all the time. Like, it was like uber messy and just extra kind of like a soap opera element to it all, right? Whereas the doctor shows that we have now, even St. Dennis Medical, which is on NBC and is a comedy, there's more of like, the cases aren't so out of this world. Like, even in St. Dennis Medical, some of the cases that they do end up dealing with aren't like scrubs. You know what I mean? It's still rooted in something that's very grounded. So somebody like me, who is a medical professional, can still connect and say like, damn, and I'm fascinated by these cases, and I'm Googling it and I'm looking it up, and, have anybody else ever dealt with these patients? And, what type of cases even exist in the world like that? So I think this show does a really, 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 really good job at being as realistic as possible, and also tying you into the mess of it all. So this is my plead, my campaign, my rant, my anger, my confusion, my forceful hand to NBC, begging and pleading, okay, to renew Brilliant Minds. Please, universe, please, NBC, if you love me, I've been good to you. I've been reviewing and talking about shows on your network. Can you give me something? Please. That's all I want. All I want is a season 2 renewal so that I can stop watching episodes 7 through 13 on repeat. Okay? Okay. And for the rest of y'all, if you want to join the campaign, just go ahead and stream Brilliant Minds on Peacock. Make sure you use the hashtag Brilliant Minds NBC. Let's get some more traction on that. Let's get more people talking about it, more people demanding more from NBC, so we can really get a good 22, 26 episode season 2 renewal. I need y'all help. I can't do it by myself. Please get behind your girl. And with that, y'all know the deal. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave comments in the comment box below. If you got people who only listen to the audio, make sure you share that Spotify and that Apple Podcast link. You can also find me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast, and you can find me on TikTok and Twitter at Kivanshi. And with that, I'm about to go watch episode 7 of Brilliant Minds, and I will catch y'all in the next episode.